The Biden administration announcing new executive actions on immigration that have sparked some criticism from both sides of the aisle. President Biden recently signed that executive action putting a halt on asylum claims as immigrants have been entering the U.S., as you well know, as we've reported here time and time again, by the millions. The border encounters did drop by about 25% in May. And days later, President Biden signed a different executive action granting a pathway to citizenship to nearly 500,000 immigrants. Democrats slamming the president's suspension of entry at the southern border, aimed at those numbers being reduced. And the president also facing legal action from both the ACLU for that. But he's also facing it on the right. Stephen Miller's America First Legal is suing the administration over these latest moves. So where do we stand? Where do we go from here? Former Chief U.S. Border Patrol and retired acting ICE Director Ron Vitello is here to weigh in on everything. And I just had a guest last hour who we spoke about how there are laws on the books. There is federal legislation that says what is happening at the border is completely illegal for people to just come in, catch and release into the public and wait for their appointment, which could be years down the road. Why is there nothing being done because of that, because of the fact that the law is being set aside?
Well, there's not sufficient detention space in the United States for the number of people that are coming across the border. In the last administration, they solved that problem with a historic agreement with Mexico, the Migrant Protection Protocols. That allowed people to make an asylum claim, get their due process, but wait in Mexico. The reason the numbers are so high, and even though they're down a little bit, as you said, we're still in record territory. The reason the numbers are so high is because people are incentivized. They come here, they have a brief stay with CBP, and they're released into the country. And we've seen the ill effects of thousands and thousands, millions of people who have come to the United States, been released by the government, and have done terrible things in our cities and towns.
Yeah, and we've seen a few of those stories just this week: assaults, rapes of children, murders of children at the hands, allegedly, of people who are criminals but happen to be in the country illegally. A lot of people talk about the cost and deportation being unrealistic when you think about how much it will cost to round up the 10 or 11 million people who are in the country illegally if you just predict how many gotaways there are. But there's a cost to everyone staying here on the American public. What's worse, or what's cheaper? Is it cheaper to keep them?
Well, this is not based on economics, in my mind. This is about the rule of law. We must respond to the largest surge in the southwest border that we've ever seen in the history of that border with an effort to deport the people who are here illegally. If we don't do that, then this is going to happen again and again. And the people in the cities and towns, Americans, are going to pay the price. All the people that are waiting in line to immigrate legally are paying the price now. They're pushing people in the front of the line. There's a backlog across the country in the non-detained docket. That's all costing resources. If we don't respond to this surge with a deportation effort, then it's just going to happen again. We're incentivizing people to come to the United States right now. We have to turn those incentives off.
I was just about to ask you, do you believe that deportation is the answer, or is it something else? And you just answered without me asking. Ron Vitello, always good to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.